Jinho Park sat on the porch of his home, watching the artificial sunset over the Callisto landscape. The terraformed moon of Jupiter now had breathable air, water, and plants, but he still missed Earth sometimes. He sipped his tea and looked at the message on his tablet. His daughter Sumi had been accepted to the Galactic Science Academy. Pride swelled in his chest, but worry followed close behind. "Dad, did you see my acceptance letter?" Sumi burst through the door, her eyes bright with excitement. At 17, she looked more like her mother every day. "I did. Congratulations." Jinho smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sumi noticed. She always noticed everything. "You're worried." It wasn't a question. Jinho nodded slowly. "The academy is far away, and with my past, no one knows who you are there," Sumi said, sitting next to him. "You're just Jinho Park, security consultant, not the ghost of Proxima Centauri, not the man who ended the Battle of Europa in one night." Jinho looked at his hands. They appeared normal now, but both had been replaced with advanced prosthetics after the war. Like much of his body, they were stronger, faster, and deadlier than they looked. "People have long memories," he said quietly. "It's been 10 years, Dad, and I'll be studying xenobiology, not combat tactics." Sumi bumped her shoulder against his. "Besides, I learned from the best. I can take care of myself." Jinho smiled at that. He had taught her to be aware, to think clearly under pressure. Never how to kill. He had promised himself that. But she knew how to stay alive, how to escape. It was the best compromise he could make between his past and her future. "I have that security job at the human embassy next week," Jinho said. "When I get back, we'll celebrate properly." "Promise?" "Promise." 3 days later, Jinho stood before a group of human embassy security staff, demonstrating how to disarm an attacker. "Aliens have different balance points than humans," he explained. "A Threll's center of gravity is here." He pointed to his lower back, "while a Krell's is here." He touched his chest. "Knowing this can save your life." A young security officer raised his hand. "Mr. Park, is it true you once defeated 6 Krell warriors with your bare hands?" Jinho's face revealed nothing. "That's not relevant to today's training. The truth was 15, not 6, but that was a different life." His comm unit buzzed in his pocket. Jinho ignored it. Only 2 people had this private number, Admiral Tae-woo and Sumi. Both knew not to call during his work hours unless it was an emergency. It buzzed again. Then a 3rd time. "Practice in pairs," Jinho told the class, stepping aside to check the message. It wasn't from Tae-woo or Sumi. It was from his home security system. Perimeter breach. Level 5. Alert level 5 was the highest. Jinho felt the blood drain from his face. He opened the video feed and saw 4 figures in stealth suits moving through his living room. Their movements were practiced, professional. The camera caught a glimpse of one attacker's arm. The distinctive gray-green scales of a Krell Jinho's heart pounded. His home had the best security money could buy, plus several illegal upgrades from his military days. For someone to bypass it all, he tried calling Sumi. No answer. The security feed showed the Krell moving toward Sumi's bedroom. Then the feed cut out. Jinho stood perfectly still. Around him, the security trainees continued their practice, unaware that the calm, professional instructor in their midst had just transformed into someone else entirely. He walked to the course administrator. "Family emergency. I need to leave now." "But the training. Find someone else." Jinho was already moving toward the exit. In the hallway, he called Admiral Tae-woo. Despite being retired from active duty, Tae-woo still had connections throughout the Galactic Union military. "Jinho," the Admiral answered. "This is unexpected. Someone broke into my home. Professional job. At least 4 Krell operatives." There was a pause. "Are you certain they were Krell?" "Saw the scales. And no one else could bypass my security." Jinho entered the elevator, pressing the button for the landing pad. Sumi isn't answering her comm. The Admiral's voice turned grave. I'll dispatch a security team. Too late for that, I need intel. Jinho stepped onto the landing pad and headed for his ship. Everything you have on Krell operations near Callisto in the last month. Jinho, if this is what I think it is, you need to let us handle it through proper channels. The peace with the Krell Collective is fragile at best. They took my daughter, Tae-woo. Jinho's voice was deadly calm as he started his ship's engines. There are no proper channels for this. The line was silent for a moment. I'll send what we have to your ship, but Jinho, don't do anything that can't be undone. Jinho ended the call without responding. The embassy grew small behind him, as his ship accelerated toward orbit. By the time he reached his home on Callisto, the Galactic Union security team had already arrived. Yellow barriers surrounded his property, and officers in uniform scanned the area with detection equipment. The team leader approached as Jinho landed. Mr. Park, I'm Captain G. We've secured the site, but whoever did this was very thorough. They left almost no trace. Almost? Jinho caught the word. Captain G nodded. We found this. She held up a small metal disc. Jinho took it. It was a quantum data storage device, common among high-level criminals who didn't trust digital transmissions that could be intercepted. My team hasn't been able to decrypt it, Captain G said. It would take our techs back at headquarters at least. Jinho had already slipped the disk into his personal device. The encryption was complex, but he had tools most people didn't. The message appeared on his screen seconds later. The debt will be paid in blood. Jinho's expression didn't change, but the temperature around him seemed to drop. Mr. Park? Captain G asked. What does it say? Jinho pocketed the device. It's from the Krell Collective. A revenge operation. For what? 5 years ago, I led a rescue mission to save a human diplomatic team held hostage by Krell smugglers. Jinho walked past her toward his house. 3 high-ranking Krell died during the extraction. Captain G followed him. That was you? That operation is classified. Not anymore, it seems. Jinho entered his home, ignoring the officers scanning for evidence. He went straight to a hidden panel in his bedroom wall. Behind it was a safe that didn't appear in any house plans. Inside was a small black box containing an untraceable comm unit. He activated it. Ju-won. It's me. The voice that answered was surprised. Jinho, I haven't heard from you in years. The Krell took Sumi. I need your help. Ju-won had been on Jinho's special operations team during the war. Now he worked in the shadows, gathering information that never made it to official channels. The Krell? Ju-won sounded worried. There are rumors about a new leader, someone called Commander Vex, very ambitious, very brutal. Can you find them? Maybe. But Jinho, if you go after the Krell Collective, you'll start a war. They already started it. Jinho closed the safe and moved to another hidden compartment, this one under the floorboards. Inside was a case containing a chip, a military-grade neural interface far beyond what civilians could access. I have a contact on Europa who might know something, Ju-won said. I'll send coordinates to this channel. Thank you. Jinho, remember Titan. Don't lose yourself. Jinho's hand paused over the neural chip. The Titan mission. 73. Dead by his hand after his team was ambushed. Even now, years later, he sometimes saw their faces in his dreams. This is different, Jinho said. Is it? Jinho didn't answer. He disconnected and slipped the neural chip into the port behind his ear. Information flooded his mind. Combat data, weapon specs, tactical simulations. Outside, Captain G was coordinating her team when Jinho emerged from the house. Mr. Park, we need you to stay here while we complete our investigation. I have somewhere to be. Jinho walked past her toward his ship. Sir, this is an official Galactic Union security matter now. If you interfere... Jinho turned to face her. Whatever Captain G saw in his eyes made her step back. My daughter has been taken by the Krell Collective, he said quietly. I'm going to find her. Anyone who tries to stop me will fail. As Jinho's ship broke orbit, Admiral Tae-woo received the report from Captain G. He closed his eyes briefly, remembering the Jinho Park he had known during the war. the man they had called the human ghost, because his enemies never saw him coming, and sometimes his own side feared him too. "Send word to all Galactic Union outposts," the Admiral ordered. "Jinho Park is to be given any assistance he requests, and may whatever gods the Krell believe in have mercy on them." He paused, then added, "Because Jinho Park won't." Jinho's ship cut through space toward Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. His mind was clear and focused in a way it hadn't been for years. The neural interface chip hummed behind his ear, feeding tactical data directly into his brain. On his display screen, Admiral Taewoo's message blinked with information about recent Krell activities. 3 Krell ships had been spotted near the outer planets in the last week. One had docked briefly at a refueling station on Titan before heading toward the Kuiper Belt, the ring of icy objects at the edge of the solar system. Jinho set course for Europa. He needed supplies, weapons that weren't available to civilians. While his ship's autopilot guided him, he checked the small arsenal he kept on board. A pulse rifle, modified to bypass standard shields. A set of ceramic knives that wouldn't trigger. Metal detectors. A wrist computer with hacking programs that could break into most security systems. Not enough. Not for what he was planning. Europa loomed ahead, its cracked ice surface reflecting the distant sun. Jinho landed at Port Galileo, a busy trading hub built under the ice. Humans mixed with aliens from across the galaxy here. No one looked twice at Jinho as he made his way through the crowded streets. To them, he was just another human in a plain black jacket. They didn't see the predator beneath. Jinho reached a storage facility in the lower levels of the port. The guard, an old man with cybernetic eyes, recognized him immediately. "Jinho Park. It's been years." "Hello, Gil. I need access to Vault 17. Gil's mechanical eyes widened slightly. "Vault 17? Are you sure?" Jinho just looked at him. Gil nodded and pressed his hand to a scanner. "Follow me." They descended in an elevator deep below the public areas of the port. The temperature dropped as they went down. At the bottom, a long hallway lined with vault doors stretched before them. Gil led Jinho to a door marked 17 and stepped aside. "I don't want to know what you're planning," Gil said. "But be careful. You have a daughter to think about now." Jinho's jaw tightened. "That's exactly what I'm thinking about." Gil left and Jinho placed his hand on the scanner beside the vault door. It opened with a soft hiss, revealing a room filled with equipment that even the Galactic Union military didn't have access to. His personal arsenal from the war, upgraded and maintained over the years just in case. Just in case this day ever came. The centerpiece was a combat suit, matte black, and fitted to his exact measurements. It could stop most energy weapons, boost his strength, and keep him alive in the vacuum of space for up to 6 hours. Beside it was a rack of weapons that would be illegal on any civilized world. Jinho began to arm himself methodically. As he worked, his comm unit signaled an incoming message. It was from Juwan. "I found something," Juwan's voice said. "My contact on Titan spotted a Krell ship 3 days ago. It was carrying special cargo in a stasis container, the kind used for living specimens." Jinho's hand paused over a weapon. "Sumi?" "Probably. They were headed for a Krell outpost in the Kuiper Belt. I'm sending coordinates now." "Thank you, Juwan." "Jinho, what are you planning to do when you find them?" Jinho picked up a small device from the vault. It looked harmless, like a data chip, but it contained an EMP charge powerful enough to disable a small ship. "Whatever is necessary." "The Jinho I knew in the war wouldn't have hesitated," Juwan said. "But the Jinho who became a father, he's different. They took my daughter." Jinho's voice was flat. "I know. But remember what we fought for in the war. A galaxy where laws matter, where we're better than the criminals we hunt." Juwan paused. "Sumi wouldn't want you to become a monster again, even for her." Jinho didn't answer. He packed the last of his gear and sealed the vault. Back on his ship, he studied the coordinates Juwan had sent. The Krell outpost was hidden on a small ice rock at the edge of the solar system. It would take his ship almost 2 days to reach, it even pushing the engines to maximum, 2 days where Sumi would be in the hands of the Krell. Jin-Ho forced himself to breathe slowly, to control the rage building inside him. Rage would make him sloppy. He needed to be cold, precise. He needed to be the ghost again. As his ship broke orbit around Europa, his comm unit lit up with a message from Admiral Tae Woo. Jin-Ho, I've spoken with the Galactic Union Security Council. They're treating this as a kidnapping, not an act of war by the Krell Collective. They're sending a diplomatic team to negotiate. Jin-Ho cut the connection. Diplomats. Talking while Sumi was in danger. It wasn't enough. He activated his ship's stealth systems, disappearing from tracking stations across the solar system. Then he pushed the engines beyond safe limits. The ship shuddered as it accelerated, stars blurring outside the viewports. Hours passed. Jin-Ho didn't sleep. Instead, he reviewed everything he knew about Krell biology and their fighting tactics. Their exoskeletons were tough but had weak points at the joints. Their vision was excellent in dim light but could be overloaded by sudden brightness. They were stronger than humans, but slower to react. All weaknesses he could exploit. He also studied the layout of standard Krell outposts. They were usually built with a central command area surrounded by concentric rings of security. Entering undetected would be difficult, but not impossible. He had done harder things during the war. His ship's computer alerted him to an incoming transmission on an encrypted channel. Jin-Ho hesitated, then accepted it. A hologram appeared above his console. It was Han Jun, another member of his old team. Jin-Ho, I heard what happened. News travels fast. Han Jun nodded. Juwon told me. Look, I'm on a research station near Neptune. I have access to some equipment that might help you. What kind of equipment? Prototype cloaking tech, better than what you have on your ship. And a neural disruptor that works specifically on Krell nervous systems. Han Jun leaned closer to the camera. I can have them ready when you pass by. Jin-Ho considered it. Stopping would cost him time, but the equipment could make the difference between success and failure. Send me the coordinates, I'll be there in 10 hours. Han Jun nodded. Jin-Ho, we all remember what you were capable of during the war, but this time it's personal. Don't let that cloud your judgment. My judgment is fine, Jin-Ho said. Is it? Because the last time I saw that look in your eyes was on Titan. Jin-Ho's face hardened. Titan was different. Was it? You lost people you cared about. You went in looking for blood, and I found it. Jin-Ho's voice was cold. Yes, you did. And afterward, you couldn't look at yourself in the mirror for months. Han Jun shook his head. Sumi needs her father, not the ghost. The hologram disappeared, leaving Jin-Ho alone with his thoughts. As his ship raced through space, Jin-Ho opened a small compartment in his personal quarters. Inside was a photo of Sumi on her 16th birthday, laughing as she opened a gift. Beside it was an older photo, worn at the edges. Jin-Ho with his team from the war. 6 people in military uniforms, arms around each other's shoulders. Only 3 were still alive. Jin-Ho touched the photo of Sumi gently. She had her mother's smile. Mingju had died when Sumi was just 5, a victim of a disease that had swept through the outer colonies. After her death, Jin-Ho had left the military to raise their daughter. He had promised Mingju that Sumi would never know the kind of life he had led during the war. Now that promise was broken. Jin-Ho's ship docked at Han Jun's research station exactly 10 hours later. Han Jun was waiting in the docking bay, a case under his arm. His hair had more gray than Jin-Ho remembered, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. You look terrible, Han Jun said by way of greeting. I haven't slept. And you won't, until you find her. Han Jun handed him the case. It's all in here. The cloaking device attaches to your suit. The neural disruptor can affect up to 10 Krell at once, but it has a short range. Jin-Ho opened the case and examined the devices. Thank you. Jin-Ho. Han Jun put a hand on his shoulder. What's your plan when you find the people who took Sumi? Jin-Ho closed the case. I'm going to make them regret ever hearing my name. Han Jun looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. That's what I thought. Just remember, revenge and rescue are different missions. Don't confuse them. As Jin-ho turned to leave, Han-jun called after him. And Jin-ho, bring her home safe. Then bring yourself home too. Back on his ship, Jin-ho integrated the new devices with his equipment. The neural disruptor would give him an edge, allowing him to incapacitate multiple Krell at once. The cloaking technology would let him move unseen through their outpost. He wouldn't need to kill anyone to get Sumi back, but he would if he had to. As his ship approached the coordinates of the Krell outpost, Jin-ho prepared himself. He put on the combat suit, feeling its familiar weight as it molded to his body. He checked each weapon, each tool. Everything had to work perfectly. Sumi's life depended on it. On the view screen, a small, irregular shape appeared against the flatness of space. The Krell outpost. Somewhere inside was his daughter. Jin-ho took a deep breath and activated the stealth pod. The hunt had begun. The stealth pod separated from Jin-ho's ship, its dark surface reflecting no light. Inside, Jin-ho checked his equipment one last time. The neural interface behind his ear fed him constant data about the pod's trajectory and the Krell outpost, growing larger in his view screen. The outpost was built into an ice asteroid, with only a few external structures visible. Sensor arrays jutted from the surface like metal spines. Defense turrets tracked the empty space around them, ready to fire on any approaching ships. But they weren't looking for something as small as Jin-ho's pod. He guided the pod toward a blind spot in the outpost's sensor network, a small area where two scanning fields overlapped incorrectly. His neural implant highlighted it as a faint blue gap in the red security field surrounding the asteroid. As the pod drifted closer, Jin-ho felt a calmness settle over him, the same calmness he had known. In the war, when everything narrowed to the mission and nothing else mattered. His heartbeat slowed. His breathing became steady and controlled. The pod touched the asteroid's surface with barely a tremor. Jin-ho waited, counting seconds in his head. When no alarms sounded, he activated the cutting tools on the pod's exterior. They sliced through the ice and rock, creating a small tunnel just big enough for him to crawl through. Jin-ho checked the atmosphere readings. Thin air, breathable but cold. He sealed his combat suit and opened the pod's hatch. The tunnel was tight and dark. Jin-ho crawled forward, guided by the enhanced vision in his helmet. After 20 meters, he reached a metal wall, the inner hull of the outpost. He took out a small device and placed it against the wall. It analyzed the material, then projected a holographic display showing the best place to cut. Jin-ho activated a plasma cutter built into his suit's glove. The beam sliced through the metal silently, cutting a circle just large enough for him to slip through. He caught the metal disc before it could fall and make noise, then eased himself into the outpost. He was in a maintenance shaft, dimly lit and narrow. His helmet scanned for life signs and found none nearby. According to the outpost layout in his neural implant, the main detention area should be 2 levels down and 3 sections over. Jin-ho moved like a shadow, his footsteps silent on the metal grating. At the end of the maintenance shaft, a door led to a main corridor. He paused, listening. His enhanced hearing picked up the clicking language of the Krell from somewhere to his right. He activated the cloaking device Han-jun had given him. His suit shimmered briefly, then seemed to vanish, bending light around him. It wouldn't fool sensors at close range, but it would hide him from casual glances. Jin-ho slipped into the corridor. 2 Krell guards walked past, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the lights. They carried energy rifles and wore the insignia of the Krell Collective on their shoulder plates. Jin-ho pressed himself against the wall, barely breathing as they passed within arm's reach. Once they were gone, he moved again, following the path to the detention level. He encountered 3 more guards but avoided them easily. The outpost seemed understaffed with fewer Krell than he had expected. That worried him. It could mean this was a trap. Jin-ho reached a lift that would take him to the detention level. Using it would be risky. The lift might have internal sensors that could detect him despite his cloaking. Instead, he pried open a maintenance hatch next to the lift and found a service ladder leading down. He descended quickly, dropping the last few meters to land silently on the lower level. This area was more heavily guarded. 4 Krell stood outside a security door, weapons ready. Beyond that door would be the detention cells. Jinho considered his options. He could use the neural disruptor to incapacitate all 4 guards at once, but that would alert the outpost to his presence. He needed more information first. He spotted a computer terminal in an alcove nearby. Moving carefully to avoid detection, Jinho reached the terminal and connected a small device from his belt to it. The device bypassed the security protocols and gave him access to the outpost systems. Jinho checked the prisoner roster first. There it was, Cell 12, human female, age 17. Sumi was here. Relief flooded through him, but he pushed it aside. The mission wasn't over yet. He scanned the rest of the data quickly. There were only 23 Krell on the entire outpost, and one name appeared in the command logs repeatedly. Commander Vex, the one behind Sumi's kidnapping. According to the logs, a transport ship had docked 6 hours ago. It was scheduled to depart soon, taking Sumi to the Krell Collective's main base. Jinho had arrived just in time. He disconnected from the terminal and moved closer to the security door. The 4 guards remained alert, their compound eyes scanning the corridor. Jinho reached for the neural disruptor on his belt. There was no more time for stealth. He activated the device. A wave of invisible energy pulsed outward. All 4 Krell guards stiffened, their nervous systems overloaded by the disruptor. They fell to the floor, bodies twitching. Alarms immediately began to blare throughout the outpost. Jinho ran to the security door, using one of the guards' access cards to open it. Inside was a long hallway lined with cells. "Sumi," he called. No answer. Jinho ran down the hallway, checking each cell through the small viewports in the doors. Most were empty. He reached Cell 12 and looked inside. The cell was empty too. Jinho felt a cold dread settle over him. He had been wrong. Or too late. He checked the other cells quickly, but none contained his daughter. He returned to the computer terminal outside, frantically searching for more information. The transport ship. She must be there already. He pulled up the docking bay schematics. The ship was still connected to the outpost, preparing for departure. Jinho ran. Behind him, he could hear Krell soldiers responding to the alarm, their clicking voices and heavy footsteps growing louder. He didn't bother with stealth now, just speed. A Krell soldier appeared around a corner, raising its weapon. Jinho didn't slow down. His combat reflexes took over, calculating angles and distances in milliseconds. He ducked under the energy blast, closing the distance before the Krell could fire again. His augmented hand struck the alien's chest, cracking its exoskeleton. The Krell fell and Jinho kept running. 2 more Krell appeared ahead, blocking the path to the docking bay. Jinho drew his pulse pistol and fired twice. Both shots found the weak points in the Krell's armor, dropping them instantly. He reached the docking bay doors and found them locked. Security protocols during an alert. Jinho placed a small explosive charge on the door control panel. The blast fried the circuits, forcing the doors open halfway. Jinho squeezed through. The transport ship was there, its engines warming up for departure. 4 Krell guards stood at the boarding ramp, weapons ready. Behind them, a taller Krell with ornate markings on its exoskeleton was gesturing urgently to the pilot. Commander Vex. Jinho's vision narrowed, focusing on the Krell commander, the one responsible for taking Sumi, the one who had dragged Jinho back into his old life. The guards spotted him and opened fire. Jinho rolled behind a cargo container, energy blasts scorching the metal above his head. He took a deep breath, then activated his suit's combat mode. The world seemed to slow down as his neural implants accelerated his perception and reactions. Jinho moved from behind the container, his pulse pistol firing with perfect accuracy. 3 guards fell before they could react. The 4th managed to fire again, the energy blast grazing Jinho's shoulder. He barely felt it as he closed the distance and struck the guard with enough force to send it flying backward. Commander Vex was retreating up the boarding ramp. Jinho ran after him, leaping onto the ramp just as it began to close. Inside the ship, he could hear frantic orders being given in the clicking Krell language. Jinho forced his way through the closing door into the ship's cargo hold. It was filled with containers, weapons, and stolen technology. But no sign of Sumi. A blast of energy hit the wall next to his head. Jin-Ho ducked behind a container and saw Commander Vex at the far end of the cargo hold, energy rifle raised. Human. Vex's voice clicked in his own language, but Jin-Ho's translator converted it. You are as persistent as your reputation suggests. Where is my daughter? Jin-Ho demanded. Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. Not here. Did you think we would be so foolish as to keep her in one place? She was moved to our main base days ago. Jin-Ho's hands tightened on his weapon. You're lying. Am I? Check for yourself. Vex gestured to a computer terminal nearby. Your daughter is quite safe for now. She's far too valuable as bait. Jin-Ho felt cold anger spreading through him. This was a trap. Of course it was. The great Jin-Ho Park, the human ghost. We studied your methods, your history. We knew you would come alone, that you would fight your way to this point. Vex's compound eyes gleamed. Just as we knew you would hesitate to kill me before learning where your daughter is. Jin-Ho aimed his weapon at Vex's head. Tell me where she is. Kill me and you'll never know. Vex lowered his weapon slightly. But I can take you to her, that was always the plan. Why? What do you want from me? From you? Nothing. Vex's mandibles clicked. It's what you represent. The human who defeated our best warriors. The human whose tactics are still studied in our military schools as examples of what to fear. You are a symbol, Jin-Ho Park, and your daughter is the key to controlling you. Jin-Ho felt the. Jin-Ho sat motionless in the transport ship's holding cell. His combat suit had been taken, leaving him in a simple black undersuit. Metal restraints bound his wrists and ankles. To most people, the situation would seem hopeless. But Jin-Ho Park was not most people. The Krell had been thorough in removing his weapons and equipment. What they didn't know was that some of Jin-Ho's enhancements were inside his body, impossible to remove without surgery. The neural interface behind his ear, the reinforced bones, the microcomputers embedded in his prosthetic hands. Jin-Ho closed his eyes, appearing to rest. In reality, he was accessing the ship's systems through a tiny transmitter in his artificial right thumb. The transmitter was designed to work even when his hands were bound, sending signals that hacked into nearby computer networks. The information flowed into his mind through the neural interface. The transport ship was heading toward a place called Nexus Station, a massive Krell base that orbited a rogue planet. A planet that didn't orbit any star but drifted alone through space. The journey would take 6 hours. Jin-Ho also found the ship's security feeds. He cycled through them until he located Commander Vex in what appeared to be the captain's quarters. The Krell was speaking to a holographic figure, another Krell with even more elaborate markings on its exoskeleton. The human is secured, Vex was saying. We'll arrive at Nexus Station on schedule. Excellent, the holographic Krell replied. And the daughter? Still in holding cell A7. She continues to study our systems as expected. Jin-Ho felt a surge of hope. Sumi was alive, and apparently doing what she did best. Learning, analyzing, understanding. Has she made any escape attempts? The holographic figure asked. No. But our psychologists believe she's gathering information. She asks many questions. Like father, like daughter. The holographic Krell made a gesture that might have been amusement. Remember, both of them are to be kept alive until the experiments are complete. Of course, High Commander. The hologram disappeared, and Commander Vex left the room. Jin-Ho processed what he had heard. Experiments. The word made his blood run cold. He continued searching through the ship's systems, looking for anything that might help him. There, the transport ship's schematics. Jin-Ho studied them carefully, memorizing every corridor, every access point. The holding cells, the weapon lockers, the engine room. He found the crew manifest next. Besides Commander Vex, there were 12 Krell on board, 2 pilots, 4 engineers, and 6 security officers. Manageable numbers, if he could get free. Jin-Ho opened his eyes as he heard footsteps approaching his cell. The door slid open and Commander Vex entered, flanked by 2 guards. Comfortable, human? Vex asked, mandibles clicking. Jinho didn't answer. He studied the commander, noting the location of his weapons and the weak points in his exoskeleton. Not talkative? That's fine. Vex moved closer. I thought you might want to know that your daughter is quite well. She has been given comfortable quarters and access to our scientific database. She seems particularly interested in Krell biology. She would be, Jinho said, speaking for the first time. She's a xenobiology student. Yes, we know. Top of her class at her human school. Accepted to the Galactic Science Academy. Vex's head tilted. Quite impressive for one so young. What do you want with her? From her? Knowledge. Understanding. Vex's compound eyes gleamed. Humans are fascinating creatures. So physically weak compared to many species, yet you've become one of the dominant forces in the galaxy. We want to understand why. And from me? From you? A demonstration? Vex stepped back. Rest while you can, Jinho Park. We'll arrive at Nexus Station soon. Then the real work begins. After Vex left, Jinho returned to his mental connection with the ship's systems. Something the commander had said gave him an idea. Sumi had access to scientific databases. If she was as clever as he knew she was, she might be looking for ways to communicate. Jinho searched the ship's communication logs, looking for any unusual patterns or access requests. There, a series of queries to the xenobiology database, from holding cell A7 on Nexus Station. The queries seemed normal at first glance, but Jinho noticed something strange. Every 10th query included a reference number that didn't match standard Krell classification systems. He converted the numbers to letters using a simple code he had taught Sumi years ago. A message formed. Data Live Station Security. Weak Section 42B. Jinho felt pride surge through him. Sumi was not only alive but actively working to help herself. She knew he would come for her, and she was providing him with crucial information. Section 42B. He searched the station schematics in the ship's database and found it. An auxiliary control area that managed life support and security systems. A perfect target. Jinho began planning his escape. The ship would dock at Nexus Station soon. During the transfer from the ship to the station would be his best opportunity to act. But first, he needed to free himself from these restraints. He focused on his right hand, sending signals to the microcomputers in his artificial fingers. They began to vibrate at a specific frequency, creating heat. The metal restraint around his wrist started to warm up. It would take time, but the vibrations would eventually weaken the metal enough for him to break free. Jinho closed his eyes again, appearing to meditate. In reality, he was preparing for what was to come. Hours later, the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Jinho felt the subtle change in the engine vibrations. They were approaching Nexus Station. He looked at his restraints. The metal around his right wrist had weakened significantly. One strong pull would break it now, but not yet. Timing was everything. The ship docked with a gentle thud. Jinho heard movement outside his cell as the crew prepared to transfer him. The door slid open and 4 Krell guards entered. On your feet, human, one of them ordered. Jinho complied, moving slowly. The guards surrounded him as they led him from the cell into the ship's main corridor. Commander Vex was waiting by the airlock that connected to the station. Welcome to Nexus Station, Jinho Park, Vex said. Your new home. Jinho glanced through the airlock. Beyond it was a large docking bay filled with Krell ships and personnel. Too many to fight directly. He would need to wait for a better moment. They led him through the airlock onto the station. The gravity was slightly stronger here, but Jinho's enhanced body adjusted quickly. He scanned his surroundings, noting security cameras, guard positions, and possible escape routes. The station was massive, much larger than the outpost he had infiltrated. Thousands of Krell moved through the wide corridors, most wearing the uniforms of the Krell Collective. Some gave Jinho curious looks as he was marched past. Humans were rare this far from Earth-controlled space. They entered a lift that began to descend deep into the station. Jinho memorized the level numbers and corridor designations that flashed on the display. According to the information he had gathered, they were heading toward a high-security area where special prisoners were kept, where Sumi might be. The lift stopped, and the doors opened onto a sterile white corridor lined with sealed doors. 2 more guards joined their group as they led Jin-Ho to a large room filled with medical equipment. In the center was a chair with restraints. "What is this?" Jin-Ho asked, though he already suspected the answer. "The beginning of our work," Commander Vex replied. "We want to understand what makes you so effective. Your reflexes, your decision-making, your combat instincts. All of it will be studied. And if I refuse to cooperate, then your daughter's comfort will be reduced." Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "She is in a similar facility 2 levels up. Your cooperation ensures her good treatment." Jin-Ho allowed himself to be secured to the chair. New restraints, stronger than the ones on the ship, locked around his limbs. Scientists entered the room, their exoskeletons marked with symbols of medical rank. "We'll begin with baseline readings," one of them said. "Neural patterns, hormone levels, muscle response." Jin-Ho remained calm as they attached sensors to his skin. He was gathering information, waiting for his moment. The weaker restraint on his right wrist was hidden by the new restraints. They hadn't noticed. "Where is my daughter?" he asked. "I want to see her." "All in good time," Vex said. "Cooperate, and perhaps we can arrange a meeting." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The scientists looked up in confusion. Vex's communicator buzzed and he listened intently, his posture becoming tense. "What? How is that possible?" Vex turned to the guards. "Secure the human. We have an emergency." "What's happening?" one of the scientists asked. "A galactic union fleet has just appeared in our system," Vex said. "They're demanding the release of the humans." Jin-Ho kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt a surge of hope. Admiral Taewoo had found them. The Admiral must have tracked Jin-Ho's ship despite its stealth systems. As the Krell rushed to respond to the emergency, leaving only 2 guards with Jin-Ho, he knew his moment had come. The station would be in chaos, attention focused on the approaching fleet. Perfect conditions for escape. Jin-Ho flexed his right wrist, breaking the weakened restraint with a snap that was drowned out by the alarms. The guards didn't notice, their attention on their communicators as they received new orders. One guard left the room, leaving just one watching Jin-Ho. When the door closed, Jin-Ho made his move. Jin-Ho moved through the corridors of Nexus Station like a shadow. The alarms continued to blare, covering the sound of his footsteps. Most of the Krell were rushing to defense positions, preparing for a possible attack from the Galactic Union fleet. Few noticed the lone human slipping past them. When guards did spot him, they didn't live long enough to report it. Jin-Ho accessed a maintenance shaft that ran between levels, climbing quickly toward Section 42B. His mind was focused on a single goal: finding Sumi. Everything else, the station, the Krell, even the Galactic Union fleet, was secondary. He reached level 5 and pushed open the access panel. According to the station map, Section 42B was just ahead. Jin-Ho checked the Krell weapon he had taken, making sure it was set to maximum power. Then he moved forward. The corridor ahead was empty, which made Jin-Ho suspicious. If Section 42B controlled life support and security systems, it should have been heavily guarded, especially during an emergency. Unless Sumi had done something to draw the guards away. Jin-Ho approached the entrance to Section 42B carefully. The door was unlocked. Inside, banks of computers and control panels filled the room. And there, at the main console, was a slender figure with familiar dark hair. "Sumi," Jin-Ho said softly. She turned, and a bright smile lit up her face. "Dad, you got my message." Jin-Ho crossed the room in 3 strides and wrapped his arms around his daughter. For a moment, he wasn't the deadliest human in the galaxy, or the ghost of Proxima Centauri. He was just a father holding his child. "Are you hurt?" he asked, checking her for injuries. "I'm fine," Sumi said. "They didn't harm me. They were too interested in my brain to damage it." She gestured to the computer terminals around them. "I've been very cooperative, learning all about their systems." Jinho noticed the slight emphasis on cooperative and understood. Sumi hadn't just been a passive prisoner. She had been gathering intelligence, waiting for the right moment, just as he had taught her. "What have you done?" he asked, looking at the active displays. "I created a series of system failures in other sections," Sumi explained. "Nothing dangerous, just enough to draw attention away from here. Then I locked down most of the security systems. The Krell think it's a malfunction caused by the alert status." Jinho felt a surge of pride. "We need to move. A galactic union fleet is outside. If we can reach a communication terminal, we can contact them." "Already done," Sumi said, pointing to a console in the corner. "I sent a message to Admiral Taewu 10 minutes ago with our location. But the Krell are jamming outgoing signals now, so I don't know if it got through." Jinho checked the station schematics displayed on one of the screens. "The nearest docking bay is 2 levels up. If we can reach it..." The door to Section 42B slid open. Commander Vex stood there, flanked by 4 guards with weapons raised. "Impressive," Vex said, his compound eyes shifting between Jinho and Sumi. Father and daughter both equally troublesome. Jinho pushed Sumi behind him, raising his weapon. "Stay back." Now, Vex's mandibles clicked. "Let's not be hasty. Your Galactic Union friends are outside, demanding your release. If you kill me, the station commander will have no reason to negotiate." "We don't need to negotiate," Jinho said. "We're leaving." Vex stepped into the room, his guards following. "I think not. You see, you and your daughter are too valuable to lose. The data we've already collected is fascinating, but incomplete. We need more time with both of you." Jinho's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you studying?" "Isn't it obvious? Human adaptability. Your species' remarkable ability to overcome superior forces." Vex gestured around them. "Look at what you've accomplished. 1 human infiltrated our outpost. Another hacked our systems. Despite our technological advantages, despite our physical strength, you continue to surprise us." "So this was all just a science experiment?" Sumi asked from behind her father. "The most important one in Krell history," Vex replied. "We've studied other species before, but none show the potential of humans. You're physiologically unremarkable, yet you've spread throughout the galaxy, defeating enemies who should have crushed you." Jinho kept his weapon trained on Vex, his mind calculating odds and escape routes. 4 guards, all with energy rifles. The door behind Vex was the only exit. The ventilation shaft was too small for them to crawl through. "Not good. The High Command believes it's something in your psychology," Vex continued. "Your unusual balance of cooperation and aggression, your problem-solving approaches. We needed specimens to study. Who better than the legendary Jinho Park and his equally brilliant daughter?" "You kidnapped a child for a research project?" Jinho's voice was dangerously quiet. "A necessary step," Vex said. "And now, you will both return to your holding cells while we prepare to leave. The Galactic Union fleet makes this location untenable." Jinho felt Sumi's hand on his arm. He glanced at her and saw her eyes flick toward the main console. A small light was blinking there. A message. "You're right about one thing," Jinho said, turning back to Vex. "Humans are remarkably adaptable." He fired his weapon not at Vex or the guards, but at the ceiling above them. The energy blast tore through the metal, causing a shower of sparks and debris. In the moment of confusion, Jinho spun and lunged for the console, pressing the button. Beneath the blinking light, instantly the lights in Section 42B went out. Emergency lighting kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in a dim red glow. But more importantly, the door behind Vex slid shut with a heavy thud, locking the commander and his guards inside with them. "What have you done?" Vex demanded, raising his weapon. "Section 42B controls life support," Sumi said calmly. "It also controls the security doors. We're locked in now, all of us." Jinho moved to stand beside his daughter. "Which means we're at an impasse. You can't call for help and neither can we." Vex's compound eyes gleamed in the red light. "Then we are at a stalemate." "Not quite," Sumi said. She tapped a sequence on the console. I've just activated the emergency protocols for this section. In 5 minutes, the air will be vented to space as a fire precaution. You're bluffing, one of the guards said. You'd die too. Sumi smiled. Would I? She tapped another command, and a small door opened in the wall behind them, revealing what looked like spacesuits. These emergency suits are standard in all control rooms. There are only 2 of them. Jin-Ho kept his weapon raised, impressed by his daughter's strategy. The Krell looked at each other, mandibles clicking nervously. This is your last warning. Commander, Jin-Ho said. Tell your guards to drop their weapons. Vex hesitated, then made a sharp gesture. The guards lowered their rifles to the floor. Kick them over here, Jin-Ho ordered. They complied. Now what? Vex asked. You'll kill us? No, Jin-Ho said. We're not like you. We don't experiment on sentient beings. He glanced at Sumi. Disable the venting sequence. Sumi pressed a few buttons and the countdown on the screen stopped. It was never going to vent anyway, she admitted, but they didn't know that. Jin-Ho kept his weapon trained on the Krell as Sumi quickly accessed the station's communication systems. The jamming is controlled from here, she said. I can disable it. Do it, Jin-Ho said. Contact Admiral Taewoo. Sumi worked the controls with practiced ease. After a moment, a voice crackled through the speakers. Nexus Station, this is Admiral Taewoo of the Galactic Union Fleet. Respond immediately or we will open fire. Admiral, this is Sumi Park, she said. My father and I are in Section 42B on Level 5. We have Commander Vex of the Krell Collective as our prisoner. There was a pause, then. Sumi, is Jin-Ho with you? I'm here, Jin-Ho said. We need extraction, Admiral. Hold your position. We're sending in teams now. The station commander has agreed to stand down. Jin-Ho looked at Vex. You hear that? Commander, your experiment is over. Vex's mandibles clicked softly. Perhaps this phase is over, but the question remains. What makes humans so formidable? I thought it was your technology, your augmentations. He looked at Jin-Ho's prosthetic hands. But your daughter has no such advantages, yet she proved equally effective. You're looking in the wrong place, Sumi said. It's not our bodies, or our brains that make us dangerous. Then what is it? Vex asked. Jin-Ho put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. What we fight for. Family, home, freedom. Those are worth any risk, any sacrifice. 30 minutes later, Galactic Union soldiers filled Section 42B. Vex and his guards were taken into custody. Jin-Ho and Sumi were escorted to a Union ship docked at the station. Admiral Taewoo was waiting for them in the docking bay. You know, he said to Jin-Ho, when I said I'd send a team to handle this isn't what I had in mind. Your team would have been too late, Jin-Ho replied. And some things a father has to do himself. Taewoo nodded, then turned to Sumi. Young lady, I've heard impressive things about your performance under pressure. The Galactic Science Academy will be lucky to have you. Thank you, Admiral, Sumi said, but I think I'll be taking a gap year before I start. Recent events have been educational. As they boarded the Union ship, Jin-Ho looked back at Nexus Station. For a moment, he saw not the massive Krell fortress, but the path that had led him here. The war, the killing, the years of peace, the return to violence. What are you thinking about, Dad? Sumi asked. About choices, he said. And consequences. She slipped her